What's up, guys? It is Coach Kally, and this is another softball podcast. In this particular podcast, myself, Kally, I like to bring guests onto the show that help you guys kind of own things. Own what? Basically, anything and everything you have the courage to attempt to do. And today's particular episode is a special one because it's for the athletes, it's for the coach, and it's for the parents of athletes. I have a good friend of mine, and I'm going to say friend because she and I have just, I guess, formed a relationship through Instagram, one of the beauties of social media. And Kelsey Poulter, she is a sports nutrition coach. And as you can see on the screen, if you're watching this via YouTube, it is called Next Level Athletes Kelsey Poulter. She's going to be presenting today, and she also has a podcast. So I'm going to be linking her podcast in the show notes. I will also include email and any other information about Kelsey, like especially her Instagram if you're not following her yet. But enough of me talking. Kelsey, let's get into you and what you do and how do you plan on helping the athlete?
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to be here. I have a big passion for obviously sports, a big passion for nutrition, and an even bigger passion for helping young female athletes understand sports and nutrition combined. Because I was that. I strive to be the person that I wish I had back in the day. And that makes me sound old. But I'm really excited for this. For those of you who don't know me, I'm going to just do a little intro. Yes, my name's Kelsey Poulter. I'm a mom of a 1-year-old now. I can't believe that. I feel so old. He is the best thing ever. So I graduated in exercise physiology with an emphasis in nutrition. I've also done several other nutrition certifications and studied a lot about nutrition, about exercise, about how the body works. And I fell in love with it. I love it so much, and that's why this is my profession. It is the best thing ever. When I was in college, and this is why I've been led back to the sports nutrition world. When I was in college, I played collegiate basketball at a school in Colorado, Colorado Mesa University. It was the best thing ever. I loved it. And it was hard. Like it was really hard. You are a star, and I'm sure those of you who are listening to this, you might be going into college, you might be at college, you might be maybe even going pro, or you might be junior high going into high school. Who knows? I know there's a lot of different girls that Kally works with here, but you are elite if you're working with Kally. You are a very good athlete, and you've worked so hard, and you might be one of the best ones on your high school team. But when you get to college, it's a whole nother story. You're surrounded by people just as good as you. And I'll kind of touch on this subject a little bit more and what we can do to separate ourselves even more when we get to that point where we've kind of leveled out with the competition. But I loved my experience in college athletics. And so if you guys have any questions about that later, I would love to answer those. So I kind of wanted to travel back in time to the time that I was in college and that kind of 18, 19-year-old self of mine. I focused way too much on the scale. And this is something, and I really like to drive this home for you female athletes because I get it. Like we are so we want to be pretty. Like I know we want to like kick A on the field and on the court, and we want to be those types of girls, but we also want to be pretty. We also want to maybe have a boyfriend or like whatever. And so you get on that, you get caught up in that. And I did. Like I wouldn't eat certain things, and it would affect my performance. I would be afraid of eating too much, and I'd gain it for me to gain weight, and then I wouldn't be able to lift as heavy. And so I wish I would have known what I'm going to teach you today. Um, and it seemed to be like I was on this mission to be as small as possible. And let me tell you, if you're on that mission, please abort immediately, because that is like small does not equal happy. I felt like the skinnier and smaller I got, the less happy I was. And I'll tell you why in the future too. But we are searching like for your strongest, healthiest, most optimally performing self. And we want you to be mentally strong. We want you to be emotionally strong and physically strong. And so if you're just constantly telling yourself that you're afraid to get fat or that food's going to make you fat or anything like that, then like that's going to affect your mind, and then it's going to affect how you play, and it's going to bleed into the rest of things. And we don't want that for you guys. And so this is why we're addressing this. And this is why Kally and I got to, this is why we became friends, is because we have a passion for helping young athletes. So, like I said, I studied a lot about exercise physiology, about the body, about anatomy, about nutrition, about sports nutrition in particular. And I continue to further my study every day because I think it's so cool. But as I began to gain knowledge, my actions began to change. As I began to understand what food really does for my body and for my performance. And this was a lot of this was after I was done playing sports. I was kicking myself for how much more I could have. Like, I felt like I hit a ceiling of kind of my potential at one point. I could have blown that ceiling up if I would have had these things that I discovered and that I'm teaching you guys today. And they're so simple. They're so applicable and easy to integrate into your lives, but you just got to learn them and do them. And so as I learned more, I became a nutrition coach. I've been working with people for about 3 years now. And then I decided I really wanted to focus in on you, on athletes, on people who really want it, really want to be good, really have a desire to be good. They basically mini me's back in the day. I want to be that person that I never had. Whether that's for softball players, basketball players, football players. I've had a lot of people tell me you should niche down. Like you should niche down and only work with football players or only work with male athletes. And I just kind of giggle and I'm like, I can't do that. Like I need to be able to help all of you because if I just focus on male athletes, because a lot of males seem to take interest in nutrition more because they want to, like, especially football players, because they need to be big, they need to be fast, they need to be strong, and they need nutrition to do that. But you girls, like, if you could understand what nutrition and focusing on it can do for you, I'm so excited to see the level up that Kally's going to see it in your game. So, um, like I said, my goal for you guys is to be the person that I never had. And that's kind of my life mission now. So, any questions so far? Do we have any questions pop up? Okay, that's kind of me. That's my background, and I want to get into talking about you, into explaining things for you guys now. So, this might be you as a little girl, right? Like you guys have spent, Kally, how many hours do you think these girls spend in softball every week?
I would say when they're in season and like here, some girls get caught up in playing all year round. I would say a week, definitely just team practices. They could spend up to 6 hours a week. If they have like pitching coach like myself, at least 1 hour with the pitching coach, and then they'll have drill work as well. And then hitting coach, and then they might have a fielding coach or a catching coach. So I think every day they're grinding somewhere. And that's another thing that I like to implement with the girls is like taking a day and allowing themselves to like completely rest and like refeed, talk about that stuff. I know for me, the biggest thing I've struggled with for girls in softball is early morning games and them not feeling like they can eat. It's like when they have to wake up at like 4:30 in the morning to be at the field at like 6:30 and there's like an hour drive. Like I really feel like there's girls don't understand like because they don't feel hungry that they don't need to eat. And then by 9 o'clock in the morning, they're just completely bottomed out.
Right.
So
Yeah. And let's touch on that real quick. So girls, and I'm going to talk about this in just like maybe 5 minutes, but our bodies run off of fuel, just like a car. Like I always tell kind of my younger athletes this, I show them a picture of this Lamborghini, maybe a $500,000 car. And I'm like, what is this? And they say, a really nice car. And I'm like, okay, like, if you had this car, do you think you'd ever be able to buy another one? And they're like, oh, probably not. And I was like, okay, so you have one car. What type of fuel you put in it to make sure it runs the best it can? And they're like, well, the best fuel possible. And I'm like, okay, so if you're going to go on a road trip, you're not just going to put cheap fuel in it. And you're not just going to like maybe put a fourth of a tank full. Like, and they're like, no, I'm going to fill it up and I'm going to fill it up with the premium fuel. And then I turn it and I say, okay, so how many bodies do you get? And I'm like, can you just go to the store and buy a new body? And it kind of clicks and they say, no. And I'm like, how many do you get? And they say, well, one. And I was like, okay. And especially you as athletes, how do you want that body to perform? And they say, the highest level possible. You want it to be at Lamborghini level, right? And I was like, okay. So if you have an important event coming up, an important game, tournament, do you want to be on a fourth tank empty? And they're like, well, no. I was like, well, do you want to fuel your body with cheap fuel? Well, no. I'm like, okay, so what do you need to be putting in it? And they said, a lot of food and the right kinds of food. And I say, bingo. And so that's what we're going to talk about right now, actually, is kind of what your body needs and why your body needs it, because it's so, so important. And I'll show you why. So, I mean, you guys alone, maybe you're spending 10 hours in softball, like on the field. I took this video from you guys are working your butts off. And then you're also in the gym, or I'm assuming most of you are, because softball players, you guys are freaking strong. Like you guys need to be able to hit hard, you're able to throw hard. And so you're grinding in the gym too. So you might be doing almost like a part-time job right now, softball alone, weights alone. Okay. And I commend that. I think that's amazing. And so here's the issue. We as athletes are pouring water into a bucket every day. Every time you go to the gym, every time you train with Kally, every time you put time into a new tournament, anytime you're doing anything to get better, hitting, lifting, running, anything, you are pouring drops of water into a bucket. These pitchers are going into the bucket, right? And you're filling this bucket up. And this bucket is your potential, basically, and how good you are. But the issue is without proper nutrition and recovery, it's like pouring water into a bucket with holes in it. And so I don't know if you guys have ever seen like or filled up a bucket with a hole in it, even if it's a minor hole, even if it's small, like you're doing all this work, you're putting water in the bucket, and then all of a sudden you come back in 30 minutes and the bucket's gone. And you're like, okay, what the heck? Like that's so frustrating. And so for those of you, I don't know if any of you have felt this, but I definitely did, especially when I hit the college level. I was pouring so much time, so much effort. I felt like I was one of the hardest ones in the like working in the weight room. I felt like I was striving to run all my sprints as fast as I could and get extra time shooting in the gym and all of these things. But I felt like there was something off. I was like, okay, I'm kind of hitting a plateau here, and like why? Because I'd always been taught the harder you work, the better you get, but it seemed to not be working at that time, and it was super frustrating. So pouring water into a bucket with is like, okay, let's go here. I can say it a lot better when it's here. Training without proper nutrition. This is the biggest takeaway I need you guys to like take. Like if there's nothing else you guys get out of this call, please just remember this and tattoo it on your wrist if you need to. But training without proper nutrition is like filling up a bucket with holes in it. Like period. If you don't feel like it right now, then I would just put $100 on every single one of you. Go and try proper nutrition for 3 months and then go back to the way you're eating or how much you might not be eating right now. And you can see the difference. It's night and day. So the thing is you guys are lifting, you guys are spending hours and hours in the weight room, in the gym, pitching on the field, but so are others. Like so are other girls. Like softball's huge. And it's just a sport that keeps growing and growing. And so all these girls are putting in so much time, but not very many people are filling the hole. So I truly believe, and I tell a lot of my clients this and a lot of people this, within the last decade, since I've stopped playing about 6 years ago, but within the last decade, training and speed training and agility and all that has really come to the forefront. So many people are doing it now. People are finally catching on. Like this is important. It makes a huge difference in my game. My prediction and is it within the next decade. So from now until I don't know, you guys are 28 maybe. Nutrition is going to come into the forefront. And so if you guys can get on top of that now, that is your separator. We talk about separators, what separates you from the competition. Small things like nutrition, like recovery, like hydration, like sleep, like any of those things that other people don't really like to do because it's a little bit extra work and a little bit boring and not very fun. Those are the things that are going to make you guys like blow it out of the water, basically. So Like I said, the take-home message is training without proper nutrition is like filling up a bucket with holes in it. And I'm going to tell you kind of 3 different things of how to fill those holes. Because when you're filling up that bucket, when you guys are working your butts off, and I get this because I lived it, you have frustration, you have a lesser desire to train, you have a lesser desire to like stay up to date on things and keep showing up and keep putting all your effort in towards Kally. You have a lack of confidence when you hit the field. Like in softball is a very mental game too. Like you have to be able to dial in. And if you're constantly seeing this water drip out, you, no matter how much you're putting in, like there's something off. And so I want to help you guys fix that. So here are the 3 things we're going to kind of cover real quick, but it's the first is I'm going to teach you how to double results without like with the same amount of effort. You don't have to add 30 hours playing. You don't have to like play more than you're already playing or lift more than you're already lifting. So we're going to talk about how to double your results and play even better on the field without doing anything but adjust some nutrition stuff. Number 2 is I want to teach you how to increase strength and muscle mass without lifting or doing it. Well, you have to be lifting, but without doing any more lifting than you're doing. And then number 3, we want to talk about how to build simple and effective meals that aren't complicated, because I know a lot of you live at home still with your parents, and so you need to learn how to do these things so that when you get to college, when you don't have mom there making your meals or packing your lunches, you know exactly what to do too. Any questions so far? We good? All right, let's keep rolling. So the first one is how to double results with the same amount of training effort. We have 3 engines in our body when it comes to working out. And I'll kind of and I want to keep things simple here. I'm not going to geek out and go too deep with physiology or anything like that. But let's just talk about 3 engines, okay? So your body has 3 different engines. In softball, you need all 3 to run at different points. And I'll kind of show you what I'm meaning by that. So the first engine is with anything that is less than 15 seconds. And so that like any movement or exercise that is less than 15 seconds long. So for you guys, that might be hitting the ball and running from home base to first base, or running from first to second, or being an outfielder and you're sprinting after that like fly ball, or anything like that. 15 seconds or less, and you feel gassed after that 15 seconds. Like you feel tired, okay? That is fueled by something called creatine. Raise your hand if you know what creatine is. Have you ever heard of it? Yeah. Okay. Yes, sweet. Okay. If you haven't heard of it, that's totally fine. But creatine is actually a chemical in the body that's. What did you say? Sorry. Okay, cool. Well, if you comment in the chat if you need, and I will be sure to check questions. But creatine is naturally occurring in the body. And a lot of people take supplements for it, and we can talk about that if you guys want. But if you're not so sure you want to take a supplement yet, you can find it in so many options of food. So creatine is found in beef and eggs, like in any kind of chicken, really any meat or thing that comes from a chicken, like any eggs is high in creatine. And so if you're not so sure about wanting to supplement with it yet, just start eating kind of more meat, and that's going to give you more protein as well, which we'll talk about in a minute too. But basically what creatine does, a lot of people kind of have a misconception. It doesn't necessarily help you grow muscle. It doesn't necessarily make you faster, but say that, for instance, you can run. I used to train at a gym, and we would train kind of top speeds and stuff. And so on testing day, let's say a girl ran 18 miles per hour. And maybe she could run 18 miles per hour for 1 second, and then she dips back off into like 17, 16, 15. Creatine basically helps you hold the top speed for a little longer. Or creatine basically helps you hold your top strength for a little longer. And so in softball, I mean, that can running from first to, or from like home base to first, like that can be the difference of, if you're able to hold that top speed a little longer, that can be the difference of getting on base or getting out and maybe like losing the game. Like, so it can be like very, very small and minor. So creatine is the first engine. I would recommend just getting it from real foods right now. And then once you dial in on that, then look at the supplementing side. Okay. Any questions on creatine?
I was just gonna side note, I know in my household with my husband and the boys and Marley, like we all lift. And one of the ways we look at it, and you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, is we look at it as almost like it keeps us stronger longer, how you said, like it helps you get to that sprint quicker, but it also allows for restoration and recovery. Um, as I was a bodybuilder in my latter 30s, and that's when I was really introduced to creatine, and I could feel the difference when I wasn't supplementing with it. And it didn't make me bigger. It, how would I say, it just like, took care of my muscles. Cause
Yeah.
every time you lift, there's trauma, and it kept my muscles healthy, I guess, if that's some way to
Oh,
put it.
that's spot on, Callie. And
So,
I could go into a whole lecture on creatine alone of the benefits. Like even non-athletes, even people who are just day-to-day living, there's
mhm,
so many studies that say how beneficial creatine is. And then even supplementing, even for girls, like 2.5 grams a day, half a scoop a day, like that's perfect to start. And so don't be afraid of that. I'm not someone who pushes supplements either. I'm kind of anti-supplements in a way. I have ones that are very tried and true and studied, and those are the ones I'll give athletes, but I won't even talk to my one-on-one athletes about it until after we've dialed in on the nutrition and the
yeah,
hydration side of things. Um,
definitely.
but yeah, I think you're spot on there. And so the second engine we have, so the first engine, it was like anything less than 15 seconds, is I guess how it translates into your game. The second one we want to talk about is carbs. Anything from 30 to 90 seconds, any high intensity, anything like that is going to be fueled by carbs. So really anything you're going to be doing in softball. Yes, there's the sitting in the dugout or something like that. And we'll talk about what fuels that or what keeps your body running and warm and ready to go there. But carbs, like any of those spurts of running or like big plays, high intensity, any of that's going to be carbs. Especially you pitchers, you're using a lot of carbs. So, listen to me now. This is your new Bible, your first commandment. Carbs are your best friend. Okay. Carbs are your best friend. Carbs do not make you fat. Carbs do not make you gain weight. Carbs will only help you. And here's why. And there's different types of carbs, and I'll talk about that too. Food is fuel. I need you guys to understand that. You guys who are working out and lifting and playing and like pitching and hitting and doing all these things, you are burning so many calories. The last thing you guys have to worry about is weight gain. And if you do have some weight, like if you do have some maybe weight issues or something, then like that's something that a coach like me can address and kind of help you work through without dropping your calories excessively, still being able to keep your guys' performance as high as possible. But carbs are your best friend and food is fuel. Okay. Food is fuel. It is your best friend. You will not gain weight when fueling properly. And the reason I say that is there's a lot of different types of carbs. And the reason why people think carbs make you gain weight is because a lot of people like to overeat certain foods that carbs are in. Cake, cookies, chips, anything like candy, anything like that are super high in carbs. And those are the types of carbs that are kind of the cheaper fuel. They're not as good for your body. They're not going to help your body. They don't have any of the vitamins and minerals in them. And so those types of carbs aren't going to be the best. And that's why people associate it with weight gain is because they overeat those. At night, you're not going to be reaching for carrots, even though carrots a carb or a baked potato. You're most likely at 10 p.m. at night going to be reaching for candy, cookies, soda, like anything like that. Because just naturally we crave that in the evening. So carbs are your best friend, but we want to be eating the right kinds of carbs. So that could look anywhere from any whole grains, any oats, pasta, rice, brown or white rice works perfect. Quinoa, breads, especially whole bread, sourdough. It's really good for your gut. Fruit is like your best friend when it comes to eating before a game. If you want something to eat super simple before a game that will give you energy and it's super natural, dried fruit, dried mangoes, an apple, applesauce, anything like that. And just go and look at my Instagram page. It has a ton of different options and things, and we're rolling out with some more content that's going to be kind of more pre-game, post-game food focused. But that's going to be your best friend. It's not going to cause a whole lot of GI distress. It's not going to help make your stomach hurt. And so literally like Kally was saying, if you have a 6:30 a.m. game and you're having to show up to the field, I know you're not going to feel hungry, but at least make sure you're drinking like a 16-ounce orange juice or sucking down one of those go-go squeezes with a bagel or something like that. Like I ran a half marathon a couple weeks ago. I'm training for half Ironman right now. And so it was one of my training runs, but I wasn't planning on doing it in the beginning. So it's like, oh crap, I at least need to make sure I'm fueling before the race. And I had to be there at 5 a.m. So at 3:30 a.m., I was making sure I was drinking a smoothie. I was eating a bagel and I was not hungry at all, but I was making sure I could do that or else I would have bonked during the race. And it's same thing, like you guys don't realize this, probably just because your bodies have adapted, but you like the night and day difference you will see, even if you have 30 grams of carbs before you guys play is insane. So just test me on it. Just say, okay, like Kelsey, you might be crazy, but I'll just try this. You'll thank me for it. Okay. So carbs are your friend. Okay. We will hit a wall. If you've ever hit a wall in like the sixth inning or something and you just feel your energy tanking, that is because you run out of carbs in your body. Our bodies, and so you're training at this level. Kally sees you training at this level, but your 6:30 a.m. game, you're playing at this level, which is basically like I'm saying, the water is dripping out of the bucket because you're not filling the hole. We need you to fill the hole of the bucket. So, we have these things in our muscles called glycogen storages. So I'm just going to call them muscle fuel tanks, okay? Muscle fuel tanks hold carbs. And carbs will have a lot of different words. A carb is the same as a sugar, is the same as glucose. So let's say that one thing of carb or one thing of glucose or sugar, any of that, is this teeny little grape. A cluster of those grapes is called glycogen. And then let's say that this little fuel tank here, let's say that that's your muscle. We want that full of little clusters of glucose, aka glycogen. Okay, we want your muscles packed with it. And so that's why you need to be eating before games. That's why you can't be skipping meals the day before games. That's why you, in between double headers, you need to be making sure you're drinking at least a Gatorade or something with carbs in it to make sure that this tank is staying full. Because like I said, you're constantly using carbs during the game. You're constantly using it. And so like one by one, these grapes will be plucked off and eventually you're going to be left with 2 or 3. And that's when you hit the wall. Like your body can't run without it and you'll bonk.
So I wanted to hit on that. So we do what I call the fifth inning funk training, where we'll start off with the exercise and it's all targeted to the legs. So I get the biggest muscle house completely gassed. And because, pitching is like 98% legs. Like, thank God, right? Because that's the biggest muscle house. And it's funny when girls start to realize, oh gosh, I thought I was tired, but I'm not. And I tell them, like, your biggest house for glycogen is in your legs, and you have two of them.
Yeah, that's
So
amazing.
I'm like, you guys need to know that pull from that. When you get tired, no, it's a choice. You're not going to be tired because everything is in your muscles. However, if you aren't eating correctly, I feel like your body takes a quick left. Like you get sick, you get nauseous, like stuff like that. That's when I feel like that's like a red flag. Okay, this athlete is not eating correctly or they didn't eat enough kind of scenario.
1,000%. You nailed it on the head. And so if you feel like that goes to show you you're not eating enough. And literally it can be as simple as eat a handful of grapes, right? Like
Yeah.
be snacking on them in the dugout if you need to, or make at the very least, if you can't have, say you have that 6:30 a.m. game, it would be different if you have a 10 a.m. game. Like make sure you're just getting up and getting a good breakfast in, and I'll show you what you'll want to include. But like at the very least, be drinking carbs and electrolytes. And that's another big thing. We haven't talked about that much here, and I'll just kind of side note that especially those of you playing in heat, and all of you are probably playing in heat right now. Electrolytes. And electrolytes is salt. Our body has this thing called the aldosterone system. Basically, just kind of, I won't get geeky with you guys. Basically, if you drink too much water, and drinking water is important too, but say you drink 100 ounces of water without having any salt, the water, you'll just pee it straight out. Like it won't do anything for your body and you'll still be kind of dehydrated in a sense. Hydration is electrolytes plus fluids. And so that's why Gatorade's great. That's why liquid IVs, that's why Relight, any of the like LMNT, any of those electrolyte drinks. I want like if you, especially if you guys are heavy sweaters, be having the 1 to 2 of those a tournament day or a game day.
What would you say for my girls in Canada? Because it's more cold there. They have more cold weather. How
it-
how how would they balance that out? Because when we're cold, we're not necessarily thirsty.
yeah, so it's hard with hydration because there's no blanket statement because everybody's so different and their bodies are so different. And so, like, if I was coaching someone, we'd weigh them before and after, and you'd be able to literally get it down to how many ounces they need to be having during practice, during games, like during the day. But kind of the blanket statement is if you're a heavy sweater, you want to be having um, at least 24 ounces during the game. Um, if you're a light sweater, maybe 16 ounces, maybe a cup less. But the minute you wait till you're thirsty, you're dehydrated already.
Hmm.
So you can't wait till you're thirsty. And so for me and how I kind of coach people, if you're just trying to work on it a little bit, so I would just say like it won't hurt you at all. Like I even have an electrolyte packet every day. And so like have an electrolyte drink and during game days, like Gatorade is completely fine. For those of you playing in 108-degree heat and sweating your butt off, like you might need even more than that, even whether it's like eating pretzels, whether it's having another like liquid IV packet, you need more sodium than that's in Gatorade. But those Canadian players, I would say if you're not sweating a ton, like you'd probably get away with it just fine, unless you find yourself cramping or really thirsty or something like
Okay.
that. So, but like I said, it's kind of it's hard to create a blanket statement because most sports nutrition books and kind of studies they all say it's so individual based, and so that's kind of just the general thing that I've given to people. But that's a great question. So we've talked about the first engine, creatine. We've talked about the second engine, carbs. Now we have the third engine, and that's fats. And I'll just briefly go over these. I wish that they named fats something different because fat does not equal body fat. I like to call it dietary fat because it's in your diet and it's what you're eating. And this is anything over 3 minutes. Like fat is fueling me talking to you right now. Fat is going to be fueling you, maybe just like standing there. Ready to catch a pop fly, like anything like that. Like fat is just kind of the underlying engine that's always working and always running. Um, Maybe just kind of like a generator. It's always, if the power went out, it would just always be on, like just ready to charge you or something like that. So fat's super important, and especially for us females. There's a lot of people who lose menstrual cycles and don't have them anymore because there's like they're not eating enough fat in their diet and their body fat gets too low. And that can actually affect, and I know you guys are young right now and not thinking about kids, but you will be thinking about kids maybe 5, 10 years down the road. And that will affect your hormone health. That will affect your ability to have kids if you go without a menstrual cycle for too long. So just remember fats don't make you fat, and they're really important for your diet, especially us females. So we need those. Um, so examples of healthy fat are any nuts, any nut butters, any avocado, eggs. I think full fat dairy is great. Fish, if you can do fish, oh my gosh, that's like the best thing that you can have. That's like form of fat that you can have. So anything like that is great. If you want to cook with some olive oil or coconut oil, anything like that is amazing fat sources. But one thing about fats is like you want to make sure that you're not eating them close to a game because it does take longer to digest. So I would suggest like pre-game, carbs only. Post-game, maybe some carbs and protein, but carbs, 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 carbs on game day is what you want. So just to kind of clear that up.
So when would they do fat? Like maybe the dinner the night
Yeah.
before? Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, and I'll show the program that I have. We've created one of the programs that I have. We've created recipes that have the perfect amount of carbs, fats, and protein for athletes, the perfect ratio. And so if one might have maybe some of them, like for instance, I did like a loaded cheeseburger fry type of meal. It has cheese in it, it has some French fries in it, it has beef in it. That's going to be pretty high fat. And I just in the notes, I say, don't eat this the day before the day of a game day. right? But then practicing like any other day, it's fine. And so if we want to get specific for game days, I would just kind of avoid it and like avoid high fat foods until you're done playing for the day and you eat a high fat dinner, you eat a really nutritious dinner, like that's great. Burgers, whatever you want. But like any other day that you're just training, just having a balanced amount. And I'll show you guys how to build that plate.
You can ask Marley about, I think it was she ate a burrito one
Oh
time
no,
after a
Marley.
game. Her and her friend shared it and they were miserable.
Were you
They
hungry?
were like, ugh. So it
Tough.
wasn't good. So she's
Yeah.
like 12. So you live and you learn.
Oh man, that's rough. Yeah, it can be fat's amazing, but it can be there's good fats and bad fats too, guys. Like fried foods, bad fat, right? Like that's not good fats for you. Any of the fats that I mentioned, great. Like we want to kind of stay in that more great range. It's okay if you have a donut every once in a while, but be mindful of when you're having those too. Like if you instead of before or in between games, you wait till after. Okay.
Yep.
So the second thing, and I'll kind of hurry through this one, but so we've talked about fats, we've talked about carbs, we've talked about creatine, but we haven't talked about kind of the hot topic word that's flying around Instagram all the time, and that's protein. Protein's super important, especially for us girls, because I think we undereat it at times. The one thing I need you guys to understand about protein is that it doesn't work if you don't get enough food. Protein is notorious for doing someone else's job. And so say that you're hitting, so this is, if you guys wanted to screenshot this or make a note of this, 1.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight is kind of, oh wait, that's per kilogram. Don't look at pound. So it'd be like 0.9 per pound if you're doing the math on that. Sorry, I didn't double check that. But anyway, 0.9 grams per pound of body weight it would be. And so if I'm 150 pounds, then I'd probably need anywhere from 130 to 140 grams of protein a day. And so say I'm hitting that, but I'm under eating on my carbs and my fats, and so I'm not getting enough food altogether. Protein just converts itself into carbs in the body if you don't have enough carbs. And so like it won't do the job. Like protein is a muscle builder. It helps build and repair things in your body. But if you don't have enough carbs, if you don't have enough protein, or if you don't have enough carbs and fats, it will just be like I'm gonna just convert myself and give the body what it needs. Like that's how important carbs are for your guys' body. So I need you guys to realize that. So I want to show you a little bit about how this works. So if you lift in the gym, it hurts, right? Like you just feel like your muscles are being torn apart. And literally there are little micro tears in the muscle belly. Little micro tears are being pulled apart, but it has to happen in order to be built back stronger. But the thing that happens in between the micro tears and the being built back stronger is literally protein. Without protein, protein is basically what are the little builders that go and make the muscle bigger. Without protein, you cannot, it is impossible to ever grow muscle. And so without kind of that 0.9 grams per pound of body weight. And that can like certain people will say certain different things, but I found that 0.9 grams is a good like kind of middle way. Like it'll ensure that you are getting enough protein. So any questions on that? I know I kind of blew through that, but any protein resources, it was literally meat, anything that, so any animal, anything that comes from an animal, any animal is obviously going to be higher. And then whey protein, isolate, like any protein powders can be fine too. If you just have one, maybe 2 scoops a day. But I always say go for real food first. And then like anything that comes from an animal, so yogurt, milk, cheese, eggs, those have protein in them as well. It might be a little less than the meat itself, but they're still great resources for protein too.
When is the best time to have a protein shake?
There's been a lot. There's a lot of studies done. Some people say it's really important to get it right after you lift. It's not so important to get after you lift. So I would say make sure number one, just make sure you're getting your protein in throughout the day, period. And then if you really want to kind of dial it in, I think the best time and usually when I would have it is right after I lift. And so within 30 to 60 minutes without after I lift is typically when I like people to do it because there's some studies that are done and say it matters and some say it doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, like, let's just say it does matter, and then you're going to be getting your protein in anyway, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's a great question. And so and so I hope you guys are seeing carbs fuel your body, Fats are super important for your hormone health. Protein helps build that muscle. You need that muscle, like Kally was saying. Your legs are your powerhouses. You cannot pitch and you cannot hit the speeds you want. So you cannot do any of that without those muscles. And so it's like, don't let the water seep through the bucket. But eat enough protein, eat enough carbs, eat enough fats. Like make sure you're filling that hole so that you can have the water continue to increase in your bucket and that you can like have an overflowing amount. And so like you do separate yourself from others. Coaches see that, scouts see that, and that's what we want for you guys because you're putting in the work already. So the third thing, and this is something, it's super simple, but it will make all the difference, is how to build simple and effective meals. And literally it's simple. You're gonna be like, are you serious, Kelsey? That's it? And I'm like, yeah, that's it. So it's like number one, protein. Okay. I usually say about a fist and a half if you're not tracking it or something. Because I know it's annoying to track your food and stuff. But if you're just getting started and want to know where to have like, okay, I just need to start somewhere, Kelsey. Sweet. Fist and a half of protein. That much protein on your plate. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Okay. That'll get you to at least, that'll be about 30 grams each time you eat it. That'll get you to close to 100, which is a great start for you. All right. Second thing, we want a source of grains or carbs. So that could be, like I said, pasta, quinoa, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, breads, anything like that. And I have another diagram. I should have put it on here, but let's just say that this is split up into fourths. Half of your plate is going to be carbs. About a fourth of it will be protein, and then the rest of it will be like kind of like fats and some fruits and veggies that are filled in. So grains, we want about half your plate, like 2 cups of grains. You want a lot of carbs, okay? And then 3, we want a veggie or a fruit. Technically, they are carbs, but I like to separate those when building a plate because we want to add color. I just say taste the rainbow, add rainbow colors. I want you to have at least 2 different colors on your plate every time. And so it's like, oh, if you have some spinach, like a spinach salad, okay, like have a red apple, right? Or if you have some blueberries, we'll maybe throw in some carrots or something like that. It's just a good habit to get into because every color of fruit and every color of vegetable has different little nutrients in them. And that's super important for our body. And we really like that. So number 1, protein. Number 2, grains or carbs, anything like that. Number 3, a veggie and a fruit that are different colors. And then number 4 is we want healthy fats. And so I've already mentioned the healthy fats, any nuts, any olive oil, any fish, any full fat dairy, anything like that is going to be great for you. And portion sizes for you guys is probably going to be like a little bit less than your palm. Like it doesn't have to be a ton. Fats are super high in calories, so you don't have to get a ton of fats in. But that's important for like serving size too. It's hard to give a blanket statement for this is the amount you need because every athlete is different, every body is different, but this is kind of just general terms when getting you guys started with how to build a plate. Does anyone have questions with that? And even if you have individual questions for yourself, please ask. Okay. If you
I
have
have
questions,
one real
yeah,
fast.
Kally, go
Correct
for
me
it.
if I'm wrong, but like, and this is, I think, just the advanced technology, but I feel like back when I was their age, we were taught protein was the palm of our hand.
Yeah.
Okay. So I was like, I swear back when I was in school,
Oh,
protein
yeah. It was
was
small. And
this.
I would say that they probably still teach that in schools, but I
Okay.
teach it a little bit different for athletes.
And I wanted to make sure, like, because I was thinking that like this could be totally catering to the athlete, the whole, what is it, the fist and a half? Is that what
Yeah.
you said?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, cool.
Yeah. And if you wanted to like weigh it, I would say 4 to 6 ounces of meat
Yeah.
every time you eat. Um, but the fist and a half, that's kind of around what you'd be getting, and you can learn how to eyeball it. But for people just starting, if they just don't know where to start, I'm like, this is a good way to start. But yeah, the recommended daily amount that you get on protein is small when it comes to like it's not enough to gain muscle. It's just
Yeah, I was gonna
enough to
say that's probably just somebody living a sedentary life.
yeah, yeah.
So, okay.
They say like it's very low. So we don't want that.
No.
Anyway, so yeah, this is how you build a plate, and I get it. Like it can be super hard, and you need to eat the right amount of foods at the right amount of and like the right amount of foods, the right types of foods, consistently, and you to see success, right? It has to be like day in, day out. It can't just be, oh, I had a good meal today, and that's going to get me through for the rest of the week. Like, it doesn't work that way. It's just like anything. Like, you have to just show up every day and do it. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but it just takes consistency. And so I don't want you guys to feel like you have to start at like a level 10 or 20. You don't have to be exactly where Kally's at. You don't have to be exactly where I'm at with nutrition. All you got to do is take one step forward. And so whether that's adding some more protein to your meals, or whether that's, oh, here's the biggest one, eating carbs before and during games, in between games, like that's literally going to be your best friend. I just say like dried fruit should always be in your bag. Just always keep that in your bag. Non-perishable, fruit leather, anything like that, like super, super good for you. So you can just like be taking one step up every single day, every single week, and then you will look back and say, holy cow, like I filled the bucket. I see this water overflowing. My work is paying off. And like I'm having my dreams come to fruition because of like these small things that I changed, which is amazing. So the problem, and so you guys can do all of that yourselves, and Kally and I kind of talked about this, and I'm only going to show this to those of you who are interested in it, but those of you can do all of that yourselves. You can do some research and figure out your protein amount. You can figure out your carbs amount. You can figure out your fats amount, and like literally, you can track macros, and track on a tracking app, and do all those things. And you would have success with that. It's going to take some work and some research, but you would have success with that. The problems that student athletes run into, you guys are freaking busy. You guys are like, you don't want to track them. You don't have the time or the energy to track them. You're kind of confused about them because it's confusing for adults. Like you're like, if your mom was doing this, she'd probably be confused about it the first couple weeks too. And like athletes just need simplicity. And I don't necessarily like to give just straight out meal plans. Like, okay, Marley, you're going to eat this much chicken today, this much broccoli, and this much this. Cause like you're a kid still, and you should be able to have some freedom to choose what you want to eat and to go out and eat with your friends still. And like you should still enjoy being a kid. Like you don't have to eat like a robot either. Not that robots eat, but how a robot would eat. So that's kind of where my programs come in. And I'm just going to show this to you guys for that to be an option for you. You can talk about your parents can rewatch this. But that's kind of where we come in and really try to help athletes out. Like I'm saying, I'm the person that I wish I would have had. It was so hard for me to figure out what to eat, when to eat it, how much of it to eat to be hitting all those goals that we've talked to you about. So there's a couple different programs. I'm going to just kind of mainly focus on this one for you guys, and then we can talk about other ones if you would like in the future. But we've created this guidebook. It's a big guidebook. It's thick, but it's a guide to optimal performance and nutrition. And so in that, we have hundreds of recipes that are so simple, that are so easy for people to follow. And we've created these recipes to have the exact amounts of protein, the exact amounts of carbs, and the exact amounts of fats that we need you guys to have for optimal performance in the weight room, on the field, everything like that. Like it solves all those issues. It solves what to eat, when to eat it. And they're so simple that like you could make them too if your mom wasn't like wanting to make them, but they also are family friendly too. So your mom could meal plan from that book. So it's pretty easy. And so within that book too, it's a guide. So we have a meal planning section that teaches you guys how to meal plan. A game day nutrition tells you all things pre-game, post-game, during game, what to be doing there. Same thing with hydration. It has a pre and post-training nutrition guide. It has a hydration guide. It has grocery guides, eating out guides for when you're traveling, macro guides. Like it has a lot of different things that like we've really kind of gone in and talked to athletes. I went back and thought, okay, like what is any possible thing that I would have questions about? And we've laid that out, and we're creating this into a little mini video course as well. So you can either choose to read it or you can choose to watch it. So there'll be like 10-minute little episode things that you guys can like, oh, I need to learn about hydration for my game tomorrow. Like I'm going to listen to this on my way to school, type of thing like that. And then and then with that book that it comes with a personalized meal plan for you. So I would do your height, weight, age, activity level, goals, and we'd create a meal plan out of this book for you personally. And then a bonus, just because I'm working with Kally and I love you guys, and she says how amazing you guys are. I usually only offer this for my one-on-one clients, but if you guys were to get this, I'll just give you guys until today's Sunday, until Wednesday to snatch this bonus, but you'd get one 30-minute intro call with just me. And so I'm able to sit down and kind of help you map out your whole kind kind of journey with this book and understand the ins and outs of it and make sure that you're training according to your aspirations and filling the hole with nutrition as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes.
So usually we would be charging like a thousand for this, but right now, and we're launching kind of the second volume of this book, and so we're very, very excited for it. So I'm actually offering it to you guys for 500. And again, till Wednesday, that will be what you guys have, and it's awesome. My one-on-one, just so you guys know, and if any of you are interested in the one-on-one, I charge 2,500 for 6 months to work with me there. I don't let just anyone work with me, and we only accept 40 spots every 6 months. And so you have to like meet certain criteria to do that. But if you're interested in that, and if that's something that's interesting to you, that comes with, and I'll just kind of run that through for you guys. It's my gold package. You get one-on-one coaching. You get that everything that was on the last slide. You get like, we just create a step-by-step phases to like elite nutrition, 24/7 access to a coach, 2 30-minute calls a month with us, with me, weekly check-ins, personalized monthly meal plans. So every month we'd send you a new one with the grocery list and guide that comes with it, monthly group training calls, exclusive emails. So it sounds like it would be very similar to what Kally does softball wise, but it would be nutrition wise for us. So those are the two offers. A lot of people who are on the fence about it, I'm like, start here. And then if you really are interested in the one-on-one, I just roll the 500 into the 2,500 if that's something people choose to do. So
That's awesome. And you also do like a small group, correct?
yeah, yes.
Okay.
So the small group, I'll show you that to you too. The team deal. So say those of you who are with Kally or something, and you want a little bit more guidance because that $500 one, it's an amazing start. But say you want a little bit more knowledge from me and you want to meet with me weekly or something. So it's a minimum of 5 is what we require. But you'd get every single thing that's in this gold package. You'd get it for $1,000 less. And instead of doing 30-minute calls individually, we do 2 30-minute calls as a group. So it'd be kind of like we'd get on and it'd be kind of like a team call together, and we'd talk about nutrition, we'd train, we'd go over certain topics of what's working, what's not working, brainstorm together, do all those things that they need. And parents are allowed to join those calls as well.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that idea. No, the biggest thing with me is as a pitching coach, I'm always, dedicated to my girls, especially the fact that like, what are they doing that's separating them from everybody else out there? Because to be a softball player, it's trending now. It's popular right now. And I feel like some of my girls, like, there's always constructive comparison that needs to be taught how to do, you
Yeah,
know? So
sure.
when it comes to nutrition, like somebody like my height, when I see bigger girls, like taller girls, I'm always thinking like I'm gonna outwork them, because that's just the school I come from. But when in truth, I don't know what that girl's doing nutrition wise, So to me, I kind of see it like as a smoking gun. It's like, nobody sees it coming, and then here she comes. That stamina, the growth, the top speeds. Like, I don't know if you watched any of the College World Series, but Florida Gators, they had a pitcher that literally set a record throwing at 77 miles per hour.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah. So, and it's not just her training that got her there. Like, I know, like, I don't know, but I have to believe that she's nutritionally locked in.
1,000%. There
So,
was just that real quick, that reminded me, there was this Kansas State baseball player. They did a series against BYU. I live pretty close to there, and I was talking to one of their strength and conditioning coaches, and one of the pitchers for BYU, they had seen this kid pitch last year, and he was kind of average for baseball. Yeah, I think he was throwing maybe 90s, low 90s.
mhm.
But then he gets average for college, I guess. And then he gets up to this year and he's pitching like 97, 98. And they're like, what the heck happened? And so this pitcher from BYU went and asked this pitcher from Kansas, and he's like, what are you doing different? And this pitcher's like, I locked in on my nutrition. That's all I changed. And it like, it was insane. And so I was like, that is the perfect example that Like, I didn't pay anyone to say that. Like that
Oh,
drives
that's
it
sweet.
home right there. So I hope these girls are able to listen to this, are able to just kind of see like, wow, like my potential is only getting started with this. And I just really want them to succeed, like you said. And so I'll give you all the information if they're interested in working with
Yep,
me or any of those programs. I'll just give that to you and you can provide that for them. And yeah, thanks for having me on today,
I will
Kally.
do that. Yeah, you're welcome. I'm gonna stop you. How do you stop sharing or do I do it? There you go. Okay, so real quick, does anybody have any questions before Kelsey goes? She's got a big day today coming up at 6 o'clock. Her brother's going on his mission. So nobody has any questions. Okay, so guys, I appreciate, oh, Marley's coming back on. I appreciate you guys for being on the call. Can you guys jump on, show me your face, unmute yourself, and tell Miss Kelsey thank you so much for her time, please?
Thank you.
Of course, guys, it was so fun to be here. I'm so excited for you guys and what you're doing right now.
Thank
All
you.
right,
Thank you.
there you got it. All right, thanks,
You
Kelsey.
guys.
Appreciate
Yeah,
you.
of course.
All
Bye.
right, bye, girl.